Can we get everybody's attention at one time? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello, hello. So listen, we've had to change some plans. And so this is the Urban League's parking lot as well. So if you're parked here, this is the executive director, Steve Belton, right here. And he's come over and told us that he doesn't want the cars parked in his lot. They can say, okay, no, he changed his mind. So thank you. Thank you. So okay, we don't have to get on it. So just so you know, so we're going to have the event outside. We're going to serve the food from the sidewalk because, again, we didn't want to offend anybody. There was some confusion about the building, so we did have it reserved. But Mr. Belton called me yesterday and said because of the nature of the event, it couldn't be held in this building, and so we're going to make do. You know how we do this. Clearly, this is the right thing to do because whenever you're trying to do the right things, all kind of things happen, right? You can't imagine the calls I've gotten, the stuff that has happened. I thought we'd be okay, to be honest with you, reserving the Urban League, but you know, people are putting pressure on folks all over the place. Every time when you mention certain issues around it, so it is what it is. You all showed up, right? We got food, so we're gonna have us a good time. We got our speakers in here, right? We won't just take to the street, and we're gonna have our rally, have a meeting. Okay, well, we're going to start the meeting a little bit. So I appreciate you all showing up. We'll do a few chants we want to have you, try to let other folks come out, and then we're going to start. In fact, I think all the food's here. We're waiting on, I think, some water or whatever. So we just line up, and Eve's trying not to make a big mess. There's some garbage cans down there. We also have some bags for you. So that's where we are right now, all right? All right, thank you all. Thank you all for coming out, and we're going to get started. As soon as we get a few more folks here, probably get started about 10 minutes, okay? All right, help yourself to the food. But food people, you guys ready to serve?
We have a third Bobo.
Sabri, where are you? Y'all ready? You ready? Okay. All right, we're ready. So y'all help yourselves. We'll get started. All right, thank y'all.
All right.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Here, take this.
Islamophobia got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia has got to go! Hey, hey! When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, when our brothers and sisters are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our brothers and sisters are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go! 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 Hey, ho, ho! Islamophobia's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
Islamophobia's got to go.
No ban! No wall! Sanctuary for all! No ban! No wall!
Sanctuary for all.
No ban! No wall!
Sanctuary for all.
No ban!
No wall. Sanctuary for all.
No ban!
No wall. Sanctuary for all. Sanctuary for all.
Hey, who else wants to lead chants? What? Turn it on?
I don't want to have I'm no
Anyone who doesn't have a sign, the signs are in my minivan.
Let's move our feet.
Okay. The signs are in the maroon minivan.
Unless you call the police officer. Yeah, we're only talking to me. No, I won't.
We're having some issues that we should chant
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! From the river, I can't read here! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Can people please go and have some of the nice food we prepared for you, please? So please go. I can't believe I begged you to eat. Can people please go and eat? Please? Pretty please?
Okay, you can
Okay, I was trying to get the...
I know you just ate, but you can have a little
You
bit.
told me arguing with the director. And he wants to have a conversation. I told you, we're never going to have a conversation again in life. All about it.
Yeah, I often did this.
No, we don't want to stop.
They don't remember.
Oh, we don't have any
Well,
Oh, yeah, and you're looking at
it's
So then I listen to it, and I really right now? No. Yeah.
So I said,
Well, this
you tell
Sunday
people
would be
to
what?
move the car. Because I'm not going to tell him. So then when he comes over here, I think he wants us to move the car. So that's why I said, let's go ahead and move the car. So then he said, I'm cool with that. No, dude, I just told him what you told me. Yeah. That's what he said. He's concerned about his reputation. He shouldn't be
controversial.
All right. Is he? Oh, good.
Well, they were going to kick the cars out of the parking lot, but he backed off on that.
Nice to meet you.
He just argued with Mel. At the end, he said something like, "We'll talk," and Mel said, "No, we're not going to talk." Yeah, I think
He actually got something to eat.
they have a party afterwards. Well, I don't know. I looked online.
He doesn't like it. When we have the Boston Memorial Tree here,
Well, not at $65.
I was thinking I was trying to go. You see, I'm sitting out here arguing with him. Because he won't let it go. You know, then he wants to talk. It's like, I'm not going to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? Forget about it. We're never ever going to have a conversation. It's like, forget that.
Yeah, you have to wear a 20 gloves, you have to charge it up every day.
I know.
What's it about? The Benjamins. What's it about? The Benjamins. What's it about? The Benjamins. What's it all about? The Benjamins. What's it all about?
The Benjamins.
What's it all about?
The Benjamins.
What's it all about?
The Benjamins.
What's it all about?
The Benjamins.
What's it all about? When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
This is pretty. Under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Venezuela is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Venezuela is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When human rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When human rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
It's a lot of standing up and fighting back we're doing. Thanks everyone for being here. Give you a chance to get your food. We're going to have our rally here. We're adapting as we go. We are resilient organizers and fighters for justice. Would you like to speak to people? What do we want? When do we want it?
Wasn't it supposed to be a panel discussion? If you want to move, go ahead. I don't think these people
So where are we going to do the rally?
I thought we could do it right there, and or rally right here in the street. Rally right here.
We should put the thing up on the table. I have all these chairs.
Oh, well, let's use some chairs. How are you, dear?
Especially since I would probably be going to work.
Did I give you one? I don't know where John is.
All I saw online.
So people, we have a bunch of folding chairs in the back of that same minivan that I told you about that has the signs. If some people want to help out grabbing some of those for the people who would like to sit, we only got about 20, and I'm thrilled to say we have more than 20 people here, but we could play,
How are you?
We're on it. We'll go get it.
okay,
So what do you want to do?
ask,
Because I don't care.
Put the chair.
Oh, you invited
I did not.
Right, exciting. So do you have a full contingency going, or okay, great. Now, is Kathy? Okay. That's cool.
I feel like just be something. You want outreach?
Yeah, I do like her. She's
Let me use the bathroom. I need whatever that is. There you go. I'll check it out.
Yeah, what about here? I mean, in the reserve seating. Do you need signs? Do you want juice? You're welcome. There's I Stand, and there's Minnesota Against Homophobia, and they're all in my car.
Yeah, I want a juice stand. Stand right here. Keep warm by walking.
No, get in the picture.
I'll ask.
Hey.
You were at MCP last
I
night.
was.
What was your name again?
Karen.
Karen or Chantal?
Chantel, nice to meet you.
Do we have a
We have a lot of signs.
Okay.
There is the
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I believe
Yes. And then what we're doing is because we got thrown out of the inside.
Oh, I was wondering.
So when we were meeting inside, we were going to have like a panel, and then we were going to have some time for discussion. But now, because we're outside and it's going to get dark, we'll still have some people talk, but then we're going to, this is sort of an impromptu follow-up where we can actually strategize and figure out what's next, because we're going to have a hard time doing that out here in the parking lot.
Well, that's too bad that they...
Pressure from also.
We assume that they, when the press release got out, he just called Mel and said that's a political event, you can't have it here. They took my deposit, we got a contract.
Wow.
But
That's terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, they won't keep my deposit.
They better
But they
not.
took
It's
it,
a deposit.
and they didn't say anything about they know what's expensive. Yeah, so we don't expect it'll start to get cold. We'll see how long we last, and then we'll meet again and figure and do the next step, strategizing inside in a place that we're in. Okay. And grab food.
Okay.
And we'll grab a sign.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, there's a minivan with signs.
Thank you.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free! Everyone who doesn't have food in their mouth should be chanting! Free,
Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
free, free
Palestine!
Free,
Free Palestine!
free!
Free Palestine!
Palestine is under attack! What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Palestine is under attack! What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Somalia is under attack! What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When Somalia is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When refugees are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When refugees are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
No ban, no wall, sanctuary for all.
No ban,
no
no walls, sanctuary for all.
No
ban,
no
no walls, sanctuary for all. Sanctuary for
I
all.
don't have the wind for this.
Yeah.
Who's got a chant? Sabra, you got a chant?
Oh, just a little bit.
When Venezuela's under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When our brothers and sisters are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When freedom of speech is under attack,
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Ilhan Omar is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Palestine is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Venezuela's under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Yemen is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When Yemen is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Where's Val? What chance? I wasn't planning to chant. Apparently you have to be in shape to lead chants. Who knew? I'm in favor. Some people want to head across the street for more visibility.
That's good.
We can be on both sides of the street, but please be careful. I do have vests if somebody wants to help people cross the street. And there's plenty of food. Sabri was in charge of the food, so you know there is lots of food. Food for all. Yeah. And please, guys, if you hold a sign and really spread out, we'll look like the number of people that we are. If we're all clumped together, we look like a much smaller group, although we are a big group, and I am really, really proud of all of you for showing up.
And you might want to mention that Tulsi Gabbard needs 15,000 more donations from people who have never donated before.
I don't know what's that.
Oh, she's even more left than Bernie Sanders. She's the senator from Hawaii.
Okay.
Oh, you don't know, so yeah.
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, check up on her, because if she gets it, the contributions, even the minimum, then she'll be on the stage. She is, you know how Bernie Sanders is left domestically and not really
No, he's
foreign?
not. Yeah, I mean, I'm a
Tulsi-
socialist. He's not a real socialist.
Yeah. Tulsi is both foreign and domestic.
Good for her. She's
Yeah.
she's Hawaiian. Is she
Yeah, she's
indigenous Hawaiian?
No, she's not indigenous Hawaiian, but okay, she grew up in a Christian household, and she got into politics, and she was so disgusted by how Bernie Sanders was cheated, because she was up there in the DNC, and so she quit politics and joined the military. She was a medic. And then she saw what we were doing overseas, and she was so disgusted. She came back and went back into politics.
She has to join us. She wouldn't have to go see her. So anyone who doesn't have a sign, there are still signs in the minivan. Am I correct? I have not been to the minivan recently. Are there still signs there?
You got a idea? Yeah.
Please go grab a sign, grab some food. We're going to still attempt to have our rally, our panel out here in the street. And then we have a follow-up event for more discussion. If you didn't get a flyer, please let me know.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, I It was nice. Look outside right now.
I have to hug you. Did I hug you already? You have one of those faces.
Okay, I let's go. All the time. Yeah. But oh. Do you have mom's new number? I hope so. She was telling me, I don't know.
I will tell you when I
CNN was saying this person also down. So the new guy is this guy from the He came out today and said that he thought that the Israeli response was Yes, he did. So he's a vet.
I think
you know, but you have to look at all these Congress people that are coming from the military. Typically, they're intelligent. And so, you know, anybody comes out and says that
yes.
what happens is all of a sudden you got
Almost not quite a year ago. We got a house together.
because they said, okay,
My mom, she's okay. She has a pacemaker.
We should tell people you know, 16 people here. It's 100 people. They didn't even bring the signs up here.
So, guys, people who are standing, obviously if you found a place to sit, it's one thing, but if you're standing, come on over by the street. We don't look like the numbers that we've got here. We have a really amazing turnout, and we want to show it off to the people driving by. Rush hour is probably starting to come to a close, but let's keep the visible presence here, eating in shifts.
Woo! Right?
Does anyone see Mal?
The 5 route, which is the most
You know what? We can bring the chairs. My big strong husband will help you carry your chair over onto the sidewalk here. Let's be up against the street here. You made the trip all the way over. You want people to see you standing up for Ilhan and standing up for the things that Ilhan is standing up for. She's standing up for BDS. She's standing up for Palestine. She's standing up for Venezuela. She's standing up for free speech. So we can stand up for her. Look at the other side of the street, guys. This is beautiful. We can do that over here. I will not be beaten by the other side of the street. I am extremely competitive for a socialist. I want more people here. Yes.
Bring the chairs for sitting down over here and then. Take the chairs from them.
Let's bring some chairs over here so people can sit. Where are my strong people that aren't eating? Let's move some chairs.
Well, that's them.
Thank you.
In the 1930s,
Remember where you put the chairs? They belong to Mayday Books and they gotta go back. I will get in big trouble.
shift in that dynamic.
In here.
Yeah, well, they didn't say anything. I think they second
Te voy a prestar algunos discos para que...
I wrote it down on the flyer. I put it in the Facebook post. Joe, I told people, yes, I'm hungry.
No, música. Yeah, no, tengo ahí son activos. Hi, Samira. How you doing?
You're gonna take my camera?
Oh, yeah.
I told you. I was trying to come here, but I couldn't do the break. So
I thought we would get some cameras out, but that's not going to happen.
Well, we had a bunch of
Yeah, we're going to, because we're outside, everybody's acting kind of weird. So we're going to have a program. We're not just doing this. We're going to have a program.
all right, okay. Next one.
I'm gonna go even do it. Hardcore!
What's good? What's good?
3, 2, 1, go! She's live streaming.
Oh, you are?
We were going to have a panel followed by discussion. And so we will still be able to have some of the panel kind of rally style, but the discussion out here with 100 and some people in the street is going to be followed. So we're planning to follow up community strategy people can check the Minnesotans Against Islamophobia on Facebook. Karen Schwab.
looks like we got three of the people going out there.
Yeah. S is in Sam, C is in cat, H is in house, R is in red, A is in apple, U is in
Maybe
F is in Frank, A is in apple, G is in wood, E is in elephant, L is in cat. I used to I'm not, but I am still,
I think this pastor says that good group so far.
I actually thought yes, I support her. I am Jewish. I do not believe that a single thing she said is anti-Semitic.
Contact Joey and interview.
I'm glad to be in the part is because the pushback that she's getting is organized and powerful, and she needs to. And a lot of us have a different constituents after that, not the money. That's she said it. It's about the Benjamins, you know. So we don't have all the Benjamins, but I mean, I'm impressed.
Let's get started. I can't find Kevin. I'm looking for Kevin. I'm looking for Kevin. Kevin, wherever you are, brother, I need you to get the program started.
Do you want to announce it?
Yeah. Oh no, he can't leave.
At the panel, it'll be a real discussion. If we manage to do it tonight.
All right, folks, we're going to get started. We're going to gather across the street here in about 5 minutes. All right? Thank you.
There's always room for you.
I'm glad you're here.
My friend John, he was there. He's the latest thing. My dad teamed up last weekend. Well, I had it done. I had yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah, I knew you had to jump on great now. Right. I'm gonna work at the office tomorrow. I'll be working tomorrow afternoon before. Then I'll go home and have dinner and then we'll go there.
When you guys want to help me out, I got to corral everybody across the street there. For whatever reason, I'm having a hard time. So grab that in. You want to help me out, man? Somebody grab you across the street because I don't think they can hear me. And we're going to all gather across the street. Hey, folks, we're going to all gather across the street. Everybody, can you hear me? We're going to all gather in the street here. We're going to start the program. The program is going to start, and I'll explain everything then. And everybody across the street. We're going to gather across the street here, y'all. Right here in the street. Try to see if they help me out here. We're going to gather across the street.
Well, we're all going over here. Come
on, folks. Are you ready?
Folks, let's come to the man of the street. Come on, let's fight the powers that be.
I need everybody. Let's go to the street here. Very few cars come along here, so we'll be okay. We should be okay also. We're going to gather in the street. The speakers are going to be, there you go. We can gather literally in the street. If we have to move, we can be flexible. We just move out of the street. Y'all got it? Let's gather right in the street. If we have to move, we'll just move across the street. So we're going to get the program started. We're going to have some poetry by one of our neighborhood activists. Everybody, come on, folks. We're going to get the meeting started. And then everybody across, so we're not in the same. Everybody across the street from me. So people, everybody should be looking at me. Can we do that? And let me apologize. Sorry about the confusion, y'all. I hope everybody can hear me, because I want to explain this to everybody all at one time. Because a lot of people have been asking me about what's going on. So if I can, if everybody would stop, I know our bellies are full now, and we're greeting each other, and this is what we wanted to have. We wanted to have community, right? This is good. Yeah, all right? Everything good so far? The food good? All right. So let's have a good meeting. I need y'all to work with the MC and the folks organizing it. And I need the folks, the speakers, people who are on the panel. I guess that's not going to work. Let's put the table. Somebody help me out. Take the table. Jordan, you guys, bring the table, that table, bring it over here. We'll have the speakers sit here. All right? Will that work? I want to bring that table over here. Got it? Sorry about all the confusion. It's like so much going on, it seems. So we're going to bring the table here. Can you guys go across the street unless there's a reason you got to be there? Please, y'all, work with me, you guys. Joe, work with me. Take the chair across the street if you want to be in the. If you want to sit down, take the chair, put it on the sidewalk across the street, right? Just give Brother Sabri Waz a hand for the food. All right, Sabri. And also, yeah, put the table right onto my left, right here, guys. And also, where my sister Ayaka and Brother Brandon, wherever they are, give them a hand for the good old chicken. Okay, if the press is still here, we are going to get a program started. I thought I saw a lady from the Star Tribune. I don't know where she went. Oh, there she is. We're going to get started, Miss Orr. Okay, so we're going to start with a poem from, actually, our neighborhood spoken word artist. She's really good, and she's also my niece, so, yeah. Yeah, a little nepotism going on here. So, without much further ado, we're going to bring up Miss Tondi Seasway Jackson Nissen.
I think your estimate was a little low. What's that? I think your estimate was a little low.
No, I thought it was. I thought it was under.
Yeah, that's right. Your estimate was a little low.
Right, everybody who's holding a sign, just point it towards something.
Oh, I want a picture for
Freedom. 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 Free doom versus free dumb. Freedom. Freedom ain't free. Freedom ain't free. It costs to be the boss. Freedom ain't free. It costs to have the sauce, too much sauce. That American dream is not what you thought it was. Freedom ain't never been free. 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 I know you came to this country searching for better opportunities, but the opportunities that you were searching for are not searching for you. Freedom ain't never been free. 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 Now you feeling bamboozled and confused, led astray, not sure what to do. Glad you're here. This is the first step, because freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom of speech is real, so don't let them take your thrill.
freedom ain't never been free. 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 Freedom of speech is real, so don't let them take your thrill, Ilhan. Freedom ain't never been free. 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 Cause freedom ain't never been free in a country where they kill Bill, Jane and Willis, Monica Jabril, Tonda Seasway, Mel, Christopher Nissen, Drewline Jackson. They'll kill anybody. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free.
Freedom ain't never been free. Never will be free. Never will be free.
Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom ain't never been free. Freedom versus freedom. Freedom ain't never been free. Thank you.
All right, give her another round of applause. If you're on the panel, please have a seat at the, this is supposed to be the panel table. Put another chair up. You're okay, young lady. We'll put another chair up there. If you're on the program, you know you're on the program, help me out by having a seat at the table. There you go. So as I was going to tell y'all before time came up, let me explain our situation. My job actually is to talk about how did we get here and why we're having the meeting. So we'll do that. I'll do it all together. So the reason we're outside is because the folks that run that building there, in fact, more specifically, the executive director called me yesterday after the press release went out, and I guess somebody shared a press release with him. I noticed with the exception of our friend from the Star Tribune, none of the other press showed up, which is kind of odd. But they didn't. We sent out press releases like 2 or 3 times yesterday, and so we got a call from the executive director who said that we could no longer have the meeting at the building. And, and this was after we had reserved it, so it wasn't like we did anything wrong. We reserved it. We even put down a monetary down payment. And so he called and said that he could not host the meeting, and he said that because of the political event. I didn't really want to argue with him because, from my perspective, it's his building, right? But the problem I have today is, you all may have seen me and him debating, is that I assume that those are the rules, and that having this meeting somehow violated his rules. So I laid back and I said, okay, we'll cancel the meeting, and what we'll do, the reason we didn't put it out on Facebook, because we didn't want to cause any confusion. That makes sense? So since we had a place that we could do, and it was going to be warm enough, we thought we would just move it to outside, right? And accommodate his wish. Now, I'm a little disappointed today. He didn't want me to put him on Front Street, but I'm going to tell the truth. Because he came over and he hassled us about being on the property, which started to tell me, and then he said he didn't want the cars on the property. He changed his mind when he saw all the people out here, right? But he had told me, some people heard him tell me he didn't want the cars on the property. So he got mad when I started to say it on the mic, and then changed his mind. So I'm telling y'all this to say that I think it's deeper than that, because if he just didn't want us using the building, he wouldn't have come out and harassed us while being outside. Right? And this is what we're up against. This is what we're up against. This is why it's so important that you all come out to these kind of events, right? Because if nobody stands up for folks, then nothing changes. The only way things change is if people take a stand. Now, you all may have seen our tongue-in-cheek post on the event page that said, listen, there are a lot of people who said they stood with Ilhan. You realize that Ilhan won by a landslide? Yeah. I can't tell by looking at this crowd or something, right? But she won by a landslide. And then there were thousands of people who all over the country were saying, I stand with Ilhan. Well, you know, you can't just go on social media and say you stand with somebody. At some point, if you're going to make a real change, you have got to put your body on the line. Yes. The folks who know me know I have this saying of, you know, I don't pay attention to your lips. I don't watch people's lips. I don't pay attention to what you're saying. What I do is I watch your feet. You see, because your feet tells me exactly what you're about. Because you can tell me anything all day. You can say, yeah, man, I'm down with Palestinian rights, but I never see you come to a meeting supporting Palestinian rights, you see. I'm down with help my Liberian brothers and sisters fight to stay in the country, but you don't come out to any of their events, right? You don't stand with them. So at some point, I'm going to suspect that that's not where you're coming from. So as I said, this is a historic moment. It is, because we've not done this before. Right? Think about it. We've not had people who support Palestinian rights. people who oppose the U.S. intervention, people who oppose Islamophobia, people who stand with Somali and Liberian, all in one place. You know, right? Some of you all have your different issues, but we're all here, right? Speaking of, Jordan, you're supposed to be at the table. Jordan, you're supposed to be over here, brother. So we've got folks from a whole wide-ranging group of folks. And you know what we have in common? You know what we have in common? Our humanity.
That's right.
That's what we have. That's what all these issues have in common, our humanity. These are all issues that human beings should be concerned about. Anytime, it was Martin King that said, remember he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's absolutely true. Because let me tell you something, if Israel gets away with getting rid of, I got to be careful how I say things because, you know, you got to be careful when you're saying things that involves Israel because, you know, everything becomes anti-somebody's trope or something. So I'm trying to be really careful in the way I say this so I don't get in trouble. But if Israel succeeds in what it appears to be doing, and this is a fact, people are getting shot down on the West Bank and Gaza every day. I'm not making that up. And they're peacefully protesting, right? If they get away, they're able to get away, right, with continuing to do bad things to people in the occupied territory. That's what they call it. And if they get away with that, what do you think is going to happen next? Right? If Israel gets away with just vanquishing the whole people of color, who do you think they're going to come for next?
They train our cops.
They're going to come for us next, right? And in fact, somebody saw the flyer. One of the rabbis in St. Paul saw our flyer the other day, and he said, well, why isn't anti-Semitism on the flyer? And I go, it's understood. It's understood. I said, racism isn't on the flyer because this meeting is about talking about what Ilhan has been attacked for. She's been attacked for talking about Palestinian rights, right? She got attacked because she brought a Liberian sister to the presidential State of the Union. People were like, why are you doing that? So she's under attack, not just because of what she's saying. We got to be clear about this, but because of who she is as well, right? There's some, dyed in the wool. We know this. Anti-Semites in the U.S. Congress. We know that. There's some dyed-in-the-wool racists in the U.S. Congress. Some people have come out, one particular congressman came out and asked, what's wrong with white supremacy? Y'all, right? I think his name was Stephen King. He actually asked that question. So what does that tell you? In his mind, must be okay, right? And if you notice, there was no move to come up with resolutions denouncing white supremacy. Right? Think about this. After all those folks were killed in the Jewish synagogue, was there a congressional resolution brought up then? No. Right? After the Christchurch event, did somebody say we ought to have a resolution against Islamophobia? No. After all those black people were murdered in that church in Charlotte, did the Congress say we should have a resolution? No. Of course not. It would have made sense, right? Right. Yes. But they didn't do it. Right. But they waited until a little, small, frail, black, Somali, Muslim refugee spoke out about what was going on wrong in Israel, then all of a sudden there's a resolution. Right? Think about it. It's a half-hearted resolution. This is the same Congress, the same government that could not come up with a resolution against lynching. If you think I'm lying, look it up. There was no resolution against lynching. Not only could they not come up with a law, they couldn't come up with a resolution. I see you shaking your head because you get how deep that is. Y'all don't get how deep that is. In other words, a resolution doesn't mean much. Resolution just says, we don't think that's a good idea. The U.S. Congress, the U.S. legislature could not find it in their hearts. And no period in history to say when lynching was going on that is a wrong thing. You follow that? But yet, we come to 2019, Ilhan Omar denounces some wrongdoing in the world, and a resolution all of a sudden. Y'all see what's going on here? Yeah. So that's why we're meeting, because we need to defend her right, and this is not a DFL meeting. I want the reporter to be clear about that. So there's no confusion. We didn't organize this meeting for the DFL. We didn't organize this meeting just for Ilhan. If Ilhan had never done nothing, I wouldn't be organizing nothing like this. But we're here to support what she has done. Right? She has been right on the issues of Palestine. She's been right on Venezuela. She's the only one that had the guts to call out that criminal, Ilhan Omar. And that's right. He's a criminal. He's a war criminal. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Right? He's been running around undermining governments all over the world on behalf of the United States government. And that's criminal. I can prove it's criminal because What's been in the news for the last 2 years? Something called Russiagate. What's that about? They've been talking about Russia interfering in U.S. politics. And from the perspective of the news people, it sounds like it's criminal, doesn't it? Yeah. Right? So if it's criminal for other people to get involved themselves in internal affairs of the U.S., then it's criminal for us to do it, for people who represent the U.S. to do it to other people.
And he was convicted of it also.
Yes, so he's a convict. He's a criminal. And she was right to call him out. And this is deep stuff. He got people killed. In the Nicaraguan conflict, people died because the U.S. government decided that Nicaragua ought to be run a certain way. And that's going on in Venezuela right now. Don't let them fool you. Don't let the pictures fool you. The people, the majority of people, the poor people, the mestizos, the black, the poor folks, they support the government of Venezuela, right? It's the rich people. It's pretty much a story of rich versus poor, black versus white, Indian versus white. That's what's going on there. So anyway, she stood up, and that's why they're after her. She stood up when the Liberians are about to be deported. She stood up. That's right. Go look at it. Her name is on the legislation demanding that they allow these Liberians who've been in some as long as 20-some years. I was going to have a Liberian speak today, but nobody showed up, and I think our brothers and sisters got to understand the importance of solidarity. That's why I wanted them here, so other people can hear their story. Maybe I'll do it later on, but the reason that we have the panel is so varied, we want you to hear people's story. So I'm going to wrap up with this. So you have to stand up with people. When people do the right thing, even if you don't always agree with them, even if you don't like the way they look, or the way they walk. If they do the right thing, stand for the right issues, then we have to stand with them. Am I right?
That's right.
All right. So I'm going to let the mic go because it got good to me, and give it to over to our host for tonight, our brother Kevin James, and Kevin and myself and a few other young people running are part of a group called Take a Knee Nation. And what we're famous for, you all remember Colin Kaepernick, right? So we got this great idea, these young people got this idea that, listen, the Super Bowl's coming here, so why don't we put on a conference that talks about police violence and use what Kaepernick has done, since the focus is on it because Kaepernick put it on it. And so when the Super Bowl was here, we put on a conference, which most of y'all didn't attend, but it was a great conference. We brought moms in, we brought people who've been victimized by police violence, and we had a great conference. And so that's how we started organizing. And so we'll be organizing a lot more political events in the future. Keep your eye out for us. So I'm going to introduce Kevin James of Take a Knee Nation.
Thank you, Mel. I will keep it brief. One of the reasons that me and Mel work really well is because he likes the mic and I don't. So, and also, you know, I want to make sure that everybody gets home, you know, gets home before it gets dark, so you know we can all stay warm. I really want to thank you all for coming out. I think this is really important to see the solidarity. And as much as we talk about, particularly my generation, we do a lot of social media activism, but you can't see who's on the other side of the keyboard, right? And so I think this image right here is extremely powerful. So I want to thank you all for coming. Yeah, give yourself a clap, actually. So it is 7:30. I want to make sure that we are out by 8:30. Again, because we all have lives that we have to get back to, and we want to stay warm. So I'm gonna ask the panelists each one to kind of just spend 5 minutes and kind of just talking about themselves, introduce themselves, kind of why they're here and why this movement is important to them.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jordan Kushner. My name is Jordan Kushner. Am I projecting?
Yeah, just hold it close to your mouth. Eat the mic.
I'm involved with the National Lawyers Guild, which is an organization of lawyers, law students, and jailhouse lawyers that believe in a society where human rights are more sacred than property rights. And, I've been asked to talk about BDS and free speech, and I'll start with Ilhan Omar's statement that led to a congressional resolution, which was where she said that she complained about having to show allegiance to a foreign country, and so supposedly she was accusing Jews of having dual loyalty, and actually that statement was nothing of the sort. It was completely twisted and made to mean something that she wasn't saying at all. What she was talking about was the anti-BDS legislation for people who come here and weren't necessarily tuned into the Palestinian cause, BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. It's a movement that was started by Palestinian civil society groups where they made an international call for people around the world to boycott Israel, to divest from any Israeli investments, and to push for their governments to have sanctions against Israel. And in response to that, the Zionist establishment has gotten state legislators around the country to pass legislation that tries to make BDS illegal. And what the legislation usually says is that if anyone wants to have a contract with a particular state, they have to sign a certification saying that they don't boycott Israel and they're not going to boycott Israel while they're having the contract with the state. And 24 states in the country have passed that legislation, including the state of Minnesota. Oh! And they passed it in 2017, I believe. And so right now there's a bill in Congress that approves of states doing that encourages them to. It was passed by the Senate. It was actually Senate Bill number 1. It was the first bill that they passed, was a bill supporting Israel. It also, affirmed the $43 billion in aid that Israel is supposed to get from the United States over the next 10 years, which is by far more aid than any foreign country gets from the United States. That wasn't controversial. Obviously that should have been controversial, but people are so used to it, they didn't argue about it. But what was controversial was the part of this legislation that approved making BDS illegal. And so when Ilhan Omar complained at this panel that she was speaking out at a bookstore about having to show allegiance to a foreign country, she was talking about this anti-BDS legislation that's being passed around the country by 24 different states and is being considered by Congress, because to sign a certification saying that you're not going to boycott a country, that in effect means that you have to sign something showing your allegiance to this foreign country. Through the organization, I'm in the National Lawyers Guild. This is before my time, actually before I was born, believe it or not, but in the 1950s, 40s and 1950s, the National Lawyers Guild defended a lot of people who were being persecuted as part of the anti-communist hysteria. And it was common at that time for people who wanted to work for different states or for the government that they had to sign certifications saying that they weren't members of the Communist Party. And gradually the federal courts and the Supreme Court struck down those laws as violations of the right to free speech, to say that to require someone to affirm some kind of political stand in order to associate with the government. There was also a Supreme Court case in the late 1970s that said that boycott is a free speech right. And the case was called NAACP versus Claiborne. It was a very important gain of the civil rights movement. The way it came about was that the NAACP was boycotting, I believe it was Alabama, I could be wrong about that, but they were having a boycott against the racist business down there. And so in response, the state passed a law that made boycotts illegal, and they tried to prosecute the NAACP for organizing this boycott, and the Supreme Court said that boycotting is an act of free speech protected under the First Amendment, and it can't be outlawed. So after we have these important gains that come out of social struggle that give us a right to free speech to engage in these nonviolent political actions, Supreme Court decisions that say you can't make someone profess loyalty to a government, and that say you have a right under the First Amendment to boycott, and yet for Israel that's all being ignored. You have 24 states that have now make people sign a loyalty oath, not to the United States, but in effect to Israel, and prohibit people from exercising their right to free speech to boycott Israel. So if this is successful, all these important gains of free speech are now eliminated on behalf of defending Israel. So when Ilhan Omar said that we shouldn't be made to show allegiance to a foreign country, did she have a point?
Yes.
I think she did, and hopefully, you know, I mean, this is obviously a desperate effort to silence and to prevent discussion about what's really happening, and that's why it's so important for people to come out and organize so we can get the word out. And, you know, we need to have solidarity with Palestine and to do something about the genocide that's going on against the Palestinians. I think we're going to talk about that. But we also have to protect our own rights to talk about Palestine and to talk about any other political cause we want. We can't allow this lobby that has all this money and network to eliminate our right to free speech.
That's right.
I think I've done on way past my time with this. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings. Thank you everyone for coming out here today. My name is Ayan Dahir and I'm with CARE Minnesota. I'm also with the Justice Coalition where we work around CVE and ending CVE and state violence in Minnesota and across the country. And I'm here today because I believe in a free Palestine. And I believe that it's our duty to uphold the rights of oppressed people everywhere. And I believe that Ilhan Omar is the latest victim of the Zionist industry to silence black people and other people who are in solidarity with Palestine. You have Mark Lamont Hill, who was kicked off of CNN for saying that Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. You have Angela Davis, who her legendary black American civil rights leader and revolutionary, whose award was rescinded because she also believed in a free Palestine and she believed that there should be solidarity between oppressed people. And so all of this focus on Ilhan Omar and her words is really a ploy to get us to stop talking about Palestine and the suffering of the Palestinian people. And it is our duty, right, as fellow human beings, to stand up for their rights and to end Palestinian genocide, right? And this connects to Venezuela. It connects to all oppressed people across the world. You know, democracy isn't just democracy just when you agree with it, right? People have the right to elect who they believe should be their leaders. And the American government and no government really has any right to meddle in other people's democracies and their governments. And Trump needs to know that. And so do the liberals and the Democrats and the Republicans who are supporting that coup and disguising everything in their language, humanitarian aid, right? This conversation about Ilhan Omar is all of a sudden about is about anti-Semitism, when really she was drawing attention to the genocide of the Palestinian people and their suffering. And so we're worried about words, and we're worried about, you know, how we're going to look if we stand up for Palestinians when their lives are literally on the line. They're being murdered every single day. They're being denied their rights, human rights, rights that we all share. And so we need to do our part, and it should not just be this many people. We need to fill the streets. We need more of us in here talking about Palestine and demanding that we stop funding their genocide, right, with our tax dollars. Right? We have to hold our politicians accountable. We elected them. They answer to us, not the other way around. Right? So that's what we need to do. We need to hold solidarity with the Palestinian people, and just like Mel said, you know, words are nice, tweets are nice, Facebook rants and posts are nice, but you need to actually be here doing that work. You need to be in the streets. You need to organize. You need to politically organize. That's what changes things, right? Not Facebook posts and Twitter threads. Nope. They're nice, but you actually need to be out here doing the work. And we need more of us doing the work. We can't all be putting ourselves on the line, right? Ilhan Omar is being targeted because she is a black Muslim Somali refugee who spoke up, and she's the easiest target to go after. And when somebody has our back, we need to have their back. And she's under fire because she's standing up for the rights of Palestinian people, their human rights, their rights to live free, to go to school, to not be shot down, to not have their homes taken away from them, right? And that's something that we all need to believe in, all right? We need to value the Palestinian lives, all right? And we need to not just be worried when our own people die. We have to look across the ocean, all right? And all across the world. When other people are oppressed, we're in pain too, right? Because we're connected by our humanity. And so we need to show people our humanity. And we need to actually put these words into action. That's what matters. Words are good too. Rhetoric is good. Discourse is great. But what are you actually doing to support the Palestinian people? What are you doing to support oppressed people in your own community? Start with your own house too while you're at it. Because we can do both things. We can chew gum and we can walk, right? Yes. So let's think about how we can actually change our own communities and support and uplift oppressed people across the world, right? So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Chris.
I know usually.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Leila Abdunabi. I am a member of Palestinian Youth Movement. Sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm a member of Palestinian Youth Movement as well as MPD 150. So March 30th marked 1 year since the start of the Great March of Return in Gaza. Last year, Palestinians set up tents along the border that separates the besieged Gaza Strip from historic Palestine. Launching their March of Return towards their ancestral land, intended to last 6 weeks, the Great March of Return has persisted for 1 year as one of the largest popular mobilizations of Palestinians since the Second Intifada. So, what is the Great Return March? As Ahmed Abu Artema, the poet whose words inspired the action once remarked, the March of Return is a scream for life, so that we may leave the walls of our prison. Palestinians are marching for their right to return to their ancestral homeland, their right to freedom of movement, their right to live and prosper on their land. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is entirely manufactured by the Zionist entity known as Israel. Israel controls who and what goes into Gaza and what comes out. The decade-long blockade of Gaza has made it impossible for Palestinians there to develop their own economy. Add on top of that, that Israel's constant bombing of Gaza has destroyed its infrastructure. And all of this combined has led the UN to deem Gaza uninhabitable by 2020. That's next year.
Shame.
The demands of the protesters are seemingly simple: the right to life. But since the start of the march, Israel has responded in its usual brutality. Over 250 Palestinians have been killed, and 29,187 have been injured by tear gas canisters or shot. One type of bullet the IDF likes to use is called the butterfly bullet. It cuts through flesh and expands in your body after it is shot to create as much damage as possible. This bullet is paid for by our American tax dollars. So what's funny as well is that the Israeli military likes to regularly brag about how accurate their snipers are. So we can only conclude then that the shooting of journalists and protesters is intentional. So not only is the Israeli military shooting at unarmed protesters, they're also targeting the people who document Israeli crimes and the medics who assist injured Palestinians. And what is our Congress doing? Wasting time attacking the only visibly Muslim and Somali woman in Congress, Ilhan Omar. One thing Ilhan highlighted was the amount of money the Israel lobby, like AIPAC, spends. AIPAC spends hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying and attempting to whitewash Israel's crimes. Ilhan was attacked for stating this fact. And what an upside down world that we live in. The message from Congress and the media seems to be that anyone who publicly recognizes the humanity of Palestinians is apparently an anti-Semite. And to me, that's actually anti-Semitic to suggest that. And I also want to add that while it's not anti-Semitic to point out that AIPAC invests a lot of money in pro-Israel lobbying, AIPAC and money is not the reason that the United States supports Israel. The U.S. does not support Israel. Israel is an extension of the United States and imperialism.
Yes, that's right.
Israel exists because it serves as an outpost of imperialism in the Middle East. That is it. Politicians receiving campaign money is very small in comparison to the money made by the role that Israel plays for the United States. And our oppressors recognize how our struggles are bound. Trump regularly draws comparisons between the apartheid wall Israel built and the U.S.-Mexico border. And our oppressors' biggest fear is that oppressed people see themselves as bound to one another and unite. If you only pay attention to Western media or what our government's doing, you would think that support for Palestine is small, and this couldn't be further from the truth. All around the world, and in fact, I think most people in the world are in solidarity with Palestine. Sometimes, you know, it can feel a little isolating out here being Palestinian, being pro-Palestine, but it's important to remember that we live in the heart, the belly of the beast. So what our politicians are doing and saying doesn't actually represent the rest of the world. Most of the world's people at this point recognizes that Israel is a violent and racist state, and the Zionist entity itself doesn't actually have many allies. Israel has to have the U.S. bully and blackmail other governments into supporting it. And Palestinians, we don't have, we don't have billion-dollar industries to lobby for us. We have natural allies in other oppressed peoples. And I believe this is where we need to focus our efforts instead of trying to, win over politicians. I believe in a trickle-up change. So, long live international solidarity, free Palestine. And I also wanted to mention that on Friday, outside of Amy Klobuchar's office, and I know Amy Klobuchar is running for president right now, but it's important to remember that in 2014, while Gaza was being bombed, she was meeting with AIPAC and other Zionist organizations to show her.
Shame.
Yep. So here we are again protesting outside her office. So it's going to be April 5th at 5 p.m., 1200 Washington Avenue South. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm Karen. I should be able to use this mic. I'm Karen Schroff-Nagel. I'm with Minnesotans Against Islamophobia and so many other groups. I wanted to thank Mel and Kevin and Take a Knee for putting this event together. And And I want to thank them for including me in the planning and the building and as a speaker. And I want to begin by acknowledging that we are on stolen land. I always like to start by acknowledging that this beautiful metropolitan area that we live and work and raise our families in was taken from its original inhabitants, the Dakota people, who were lied to, promised compensation they never received, expelled and largely exterminated so that European colonial settlers could fulfill their so-called manifest destiny. I point this out not only because it's true, but because our collective unwillingness to see this truth is part of what conditions us as Americans to believe the myths that are so widespread and so accepted as truth about the Zionist state of Israel. Yes. I'm speaking today not representing any particular group, although I'm active with so many, but I am speaking as a Jewish anti-Zionist. I was raised to believe that Israel was a land without a people for a people without a land. Does that sound familiar?
That's right. That's what I was told.
Settler colonial mythology. When I started to see the truth that a country I was always told existed to guarantee my safety as a Jew in an anti-Semitic world was actually built on the expulsion and genocide of the original peoples, the Palestinian people, a genocide that's still going on, it was a bitter pill to swallow. Besides being told that the land was empty, I was also raised to believe that Jews, as victims of oppression and genocide, care deeply about the human rights of everyone. We always used to say, never again. And I always thought that meant that what Hitler did in targeting us for genocide, we can never allow that to happen again. But the mistake I made was thinking we could never allow such a thing to happen again to anyone. Right. How could my people, oppressed for millennia, be perpetrating genocide? But it's true. And Israel has a partner in its ongoing colonial project to rid the land of its ancient original people. And that partner is the United States.
All right.
Well, it has more than one partner, but I'm focusing on the United States. And I've spent the last 20 years as an anti-Zionist Jew trying to address this, being told over and over again that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, although that term is wholly inaccurate for what is actually meant, which is anti-Jewish. And using a term like anti-Semitism to describe what is actually anti-Jewish hatred serves the Israeli colonial project. Equating any criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism serves the same project. The settler colonial state of Israel uses the equation of Judaism, a thousands of years old religion, with Zionism, a 150-year-old political ideology that advocates an exclusively Jewish state, to generate false support for its ongoing crimes against humanity. I spent years, decades, attending meetings with congressional representatives, using my Super Jew shield to help deflect the mistaken notion that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish. I spent years as a member of the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, and now as a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, attempting to disentangle the completely distinct notions of supporting Jewish people and supporting a Jewish ethno-state. They're completely separate. For how dramatically she has advanced these efforts, and for the enormous personal cost she has paid to do so, I am incredibly, and we are all incredibly grateful to Ilhan Omar. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? We good?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. It is now 8 o'clock, so we got 2 more speakers. We will get you out of here on time.
Before time.
Hi, I'm Sarah Martin from WHAM, Women Against Military Madness, and I was lucky enough to be in Venezuela 2 weeks ago with an anti-war delegation. I assume that everybody knows that any kind of intervention or regime, that everybody disagrees with U.S. intervention and regime change. Is there anybody that I need to convince of that?
No.
Okay, but I know that you have lots of family and friends who are confused, right? And the reason they are confused, well, first of all, let me say, WHAM started in the 80s. During those first Central American wars, engineered and architects were Bolton and Abrams. So when Ilhan took on Abrams, I think you could hear a cheer from 4,200 for that brave statement that she made and that brave going after him. But as I was saying, that this intervention and aggression against Venezuela is based on lies. And of course, in order to sell this to the U.S. public, they've got the media and Congress almost to a person. There are just about 3 of them, I think, that have spoken out, maybe 5 have spoken out against it, have to tell lies, right? That's how these interventions are sold. And the lies are horrendous for Venezuela. And you probably heard, and you wonder why are we going after Venezuela? Well, it's a very mineral-rich country, obviously. It's got oil, second largest reserves in the world. It's got gold, it's got diamonds, it's got coltan, it's got gas. So the U.S. has always pretty much been able to call the shots, and big oil has made lots of money, and people have been very poor. And this was true up until 1998 with Hugo Chavez. Everybody heard of Hugo Chavez? Yeah.
Yes.
He came to power and things changed. He came to power in the backs of a very progressive movement that wanted to make life better for Venezuelans and for Venezuelans to be able to benefit from the riches under their land. And that in 20 years that has happened actually. But the U.S., the minute he came to power, started to go after him, and of course tried with a coup. And after he died, the sanctions and all the mechanisms that the U.S. uses to get rid of countries have really escalated.
Any Venezuelans here?
What?
Are there any Venezuelans here?
Not tonight, I guess. They often are. Huh? Anyway, back to the lies that the media tells. Have you heard that he's a dictator? Right?
Yeah.
He was elected in one of the freest, fairest, most open, most corrupt-free election systems in the world. I mean, this is internationally known. It's an incredible system. And Guaido, the guy who says he is the president, the guy who self-declared as the president, is a fraud, of course. He's made in the USA. He was trained in the USA. He has no constitutional standing, and yet he goes around. He should be in jail, but he is not in jail. His chief of staff is in jail, however, because it was found on his cell phone and in his emails that he's been engineering, actually sabotage and against the government and against the people. Now, Trump said that Venezuela is in such terrible condition because of socialism, that it's in a humanitarian crisis. Well, of course, it is actually a manufactured, just like in Gaza, a manufactured humanitarian crisis. But let me just tell you quickly about some of the gains made in the last 20 years. Since 2016, now get this, 2.1 million affordable housing units have been built in Venezuela. Homelessness is going up in this state. I mean, it's outrageous. They've developed an incredible healthcare system based on the Cuban model, trained tens of thousands of doctors, and even though they're suffering from lacks of medicine because of the sanctions that the U.S. has imposed on the country, they're still giving care to people. There are food shortages. Everything that is wrong in Venezuela is because of U.S. sanctions, because of manipulation with the currency, because we keep their money. We're not we're not letting the money go back to buy stuff. They could buy stuff. I mean, they obviously have a lot of money at their disposal, except it isn't at their disposal. When we were there, we visited. Okay, is it? All right. So what I will say, I will just say. Are you all convinced that this is a manufactured crisis, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
So we got to stand with Venezuela. Their struggle is our struggle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And what happens in Venezuela is going to directly influence and happen in Cuba and Nicaragua and in all of South America. So hands off Venezuela.
Hands off Venezuela.
Venezuela are under attack. What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Thanks.
Right. We're cool enough. We have one more speaker, Sabri. And then we will wrap it up with Sabri, and then we will call it a night.
There's a woman who's live streaming at this event, and she just showed me her phone. There's 198 people watching.
All right!
To those 200 people watching, thank you for watching.
Yeah.
It was a lot better from the street. So please come out next time.
So I just want to say Mel already did a great job of speaking about the Palestinian rights and what's really going on in Israel. And Sister Layla also did a great job. I want to educate you guys about a few things that you don't know. What they teach in the Israeli schools, they actually teach this. They teach the Israeli students, anytime somebody ever confronts you as you get older about Israeli human rights violations or the occupation, just throw the word anti-Semite to them and then they will be scared. So one time a student said, well, what if they don't fall for it anymore? And then they have steps. They actually have steps that they teach them on what to say. Raise your hand and please be honest. So some of you are going to be surprised, but raise your hand if you know that Arabs, by the way, are also Semites. Just be honest. It's okay not to know. Let me read you the definition on Google itself. I like to always confirm what I say to people. Semite, a member of any people who speak or spoke a Semitic language, including, in particular, Jews and Arabs. Arabs and Jews are first cousins. So because of the human rights violations and the laws applied by Israel, which dictate special laws for Jews only and separate laws for Christians and Muslims in Israel, actually make Israel the anti-Semitic country. Israel's the one that's anti-Semitic. Do you know that Christians and Muslims, simply because they're not Jewish, are second and third class citizens on their own homeland? My wife was born in Jerusalem. But if a Jewish person right now from Russia who has never stepped foot on that land goes to Israel, immediately receives more rights and privileges than my wife who was born there, and her mother, and her great-grandmother, and so on and back. Now, Palestinians are not saying that we should have more rights than the Jews. We're saying everybody who belongs to that land should have the same rights and the same laws for everyone.
Yeah.
Is that too much to ask?
No.
We just want everyone the same law. Please follow a group on Breaking the Silence, okay, on Facebook. They're called Breaking the Silence. It's a group of former IDF soldiers. You can't get any more fair than that. Former IDF soldiers who got together and risked going to jail. And thousands have been jailed because they simply said, I can no longer be a soldier in the occupied territories because it's inhumane what we're doing. And they opened a page on Facebook. I just read a story right now. I go on it daily. And it's just emotional when you read. These are IDF soldiers, by the way. And they tell you the stories of what their generals made them do. And recently with what's going on in Gaza, more of them are being jailed because they refused. They spoke up. They went in front of the Knesset and they said, we cannot take this anymore. We were given green light to shoot at unarmed Palestinians. We were given green light to shoot just for fun at homes, for target practice. These are former IDF soldiers who've said this. Watch the documentary on YouTube, it's free. It's called 5 Broken Cameras. It was nominated for an Oscar. The same year it was nominated for an Oscar, a documentary called Gatekeepers was nominated for Oscar. The 5 former Mossad, it's the same as the CIA in the US. The 5 former leaders of Mossad are speaking out and testifying about the human rights violations and what the state of Israel is really doing to the Palestinian people. So please, when you support Ilhan Omar, you're not supporting that Palestinian Arabs deserve more rights than Jews. You're supporting her saying that everyone in Palestine deserves the same rights and laws. That's all Ilhan Omar is saying. I'm Muslim, and if you know me, I will not say the words that I say daily about the governments of Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Syria and Jordan. I will not say these words in front of children. So why is it okay for me to criticize Muslim governments, but if I say a word against the government of Israel, and again, the government of Israel, I have Jewish friends, I risk my lives for them. Why is it only anti-Semitic, or we have to stop because it's Israel? It's the government. We're not saying anything about the Jewish people. Hundreds and thousands of people in Israel protest all the time, criticizing the government of Israel because they're against what the government of Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. It's simple. There's either equality for everyone or there's apartheid. If you're in Israel and you're Jewish, you could buy a home from a Palestinian. If you're Palestinian, you cannot buy a home from a Jewish person. Who supports that? Raise your hand. That's called apartheid. If you go to the US Embassy, you stand outside in line to go inside. If you're Jewish, you have a special entrance, you wait inside. It doesn't matter if it's cold. That's called apartheid. And these laws keep going. Your IDs differentiate you. It will tell you if you're Christian or Muslim, and you have a special ID if you're Jewish. This is the state of Israel. Lots of Jews, tens of thousands, and now they're growing to the hundreds of thousands worldwide, are condemning the government of Israel, saying we don't support this, this must stop. I've been to DC, I've been to New York, I've been all over, and Jews are doing civil disobedience all over the country. They're jailed because they're standing up and they're saying no to Israel also. Don't let that word anti-Semite scare you, because when you stand up for people like Congressman Ilhan Omar, you got to understand you're standing up because you're against anti-Semitism, because Arabs are also Semites. And the way we're being treated in Israel is apartheid. That's it. There is no other definition. It's apartheid. When you have a license plate for Jews and a different license plate if you're Christian or Muslim, that's called apartheid. It's that simple. We're not asking for extra rights. I'm Muslim. I cannot right now travel to Iran and get more rights and privileges than the Iranian Jews who live there, who were born there. They have the same rights as everyone else there, and that's how it should be. I shouldn't be able to travel to Iran and receive more rights and privileges than the Jews who live in Iran. That's how it should be. The Jews from Iran are Iranian Jews. They should have rights and privileges more than me. So the people who belong to Palestine, every single one of them should have the same rights. But that's if you belong to Palestine. You can't just simply say special privileges for Jews only and everyone else is a second and third class citizen. That's all Ilhan Omar saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all Brother Mel saying. That's all everyone's saying. So I just want to finish it with this. Like Brother Mel said, you can't pretend that you care about justice and you standing up for people's rights, but you never take to the streets and you never join other people's struggles. I actually started my activism in high school for the African American and Native American community. Last year during the Super Bowl, before it started, it was 30 below wind chill. I was out, one of the lead chanters, supporting Colin Kaepernick as we marched 3.5 miles to the Minneapolis Stadium for the Super Bowl. I go to all these other events. I was just a few days ago to protest for Venezuela. Please guys, just like Brother Mel said, you must stand up for everyone's rights, for everyone's causes, and believe in justice for everyone. You either stand up for everyone, or you don't really care about justice for everyone. Peace.
So that's a wrap. Thank you for coming out, showing up, and being here. We have a follow-up meeting on Friday that I'm gonna have her share about, and then we're also gonna clean up. Ask everybody if anybody can help us clean up as we head out. That would be great. I'm taking one of them rices because y'all had all the chicken. If everything else, please, again, thank you for coming again.
And everyone, when we originally were going to be inside, we were going to have a chance to actually talk, not just be spoken at. So we planned a follow-up event where we're going to be allowed inside a building to have a conversation. It's a community strategy session. It's at Brian Coyle Center on the West Bank, Cedar Riverside neighborhood. It's on Thursday, April 18th, 5:30 to 7:30. We will feed you. Come over there and we will actually plan our next steps. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Woo! Woo!